A lot has changed over the weekend in the NFL world. We've got a new team holding the number one pick in the NFL draft, a blockbuster Bears and Panthers trade for number one. What the top 10 of the NFL draft looks like now. A little mock draft snippet. The top 10 picks in the NFL draft from Matt Williamson, Jalen Ramsey trade, and a whole bunch more as legal tampering begins on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. A blockbuster, Matt, happened between the Chicago Bears and the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers moving all the way up to number one in the NFL draft. The Bears now own the Panthers' 9th selection in the NFL draft, Matt. I'm sure everybody knows the moving parts here and what happened, but it was number 9, a first-round pick in 2024, wide receiver DJ Moore, a superstar wide receiver now going from the Panthers to the Bears as part of the deal. A second-round pick, the second-round pick from the Carolina Panthers, which was part of the Christian McCaffrey trade. So some extra picks for the Panthers there from maneuvering during the season to have this to be capable of making this move in the preseason, postseason, off season as we are right now, and then another second-round pick in 2025. So. If you count DJ Moore as a first-round pick, this is pretty standard now what we're seeing. If you're moving up 10 picks in the draft, getting up high in the first round for a quarterback, you're going to be giving up first-round picks in 2 drafts post the draft that you're in, swapping those first-round picks and some other day 2 picks as well. So a first-round pick, DJ Moore, 2 second-round picks to go along with swapping number 9 and number 1, and the Carolina Panthers moved up for who, Matt?
I think it's Stroud, but I'm just kind of going off Vegas, to be honest with you. The betting odds are heavy on CJ Stroud. I think a lot of that comes from Josh McCown. I think you brought this up like a month ago that, Josh McCown did a bunch of videos with the underdog folks, I think it was, Josh Norris, and he does great work. And if you go look at those, it's pretty clear that his favorite, not that he's in charge of this decision, is Stroud. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think he's safe. Couple notes. Let's take this. Let's unpeel this a little bit from Carolina's side first. Is they gave up a lot, and we'll get to that. But at least they have an early second this year. They have their second next year, and they have their first the following year. So it's not like the cupboards are totally bare draft pick wise in terms of the next couple years. I mean, you have some premium picks still. I also think it's noteworthy that they currently, this second, and I'm sure they can restructure some others, have about $22 million in cap space, so they can go get some things that they lost and, help build around whoever that quarterback is. And what I think is really noteworthy that I haven't seen a lot of people unpack is this very well could be a rough year for the Panthers. I mean, you're probably going to have a rookie quarterback. They don't look like a contender. But 1 year from now, much like the Bears, the Panthers have tons of cap space for the next offseason. So if you suffer through the 2023 season, your quarterback looks like he belongs. They have an O-line in place, so it shouldn't get disastrously ugly. That maybe we're talking 1 year from now that, boy, look out for the Panthers. They have a defense in place, they have an O-line, and they have all this cap space,
It's interesting that the past deals that could make the future deals in the NFL. And the 49ers had extra comp picks that they knew were coming. So they felt okay trading a second, third, fourth, fifth round pick to the Panthers for Christian McCaffrey. The Panthers now have these extra draft picks. So it helps them feel like, well, we've got an extra second round pick. We still have a second round pick this year if we trade up in the first round. We still have a second pick next year. And it allows them to do some maneuvering and feel better about the deals they're able to do. Now the Chicago Bears have extra picks, and now they'll feel better about the deals that they're able to do. They could go trade for a veteran player if they want. They could still maneuver around in the draft. They'll have an extra first-round pick next year to do things. So the aggressiveness of a lot of the GMs currently in the NFL has move so much draft capital around and so many players around that it's allowed teams, I think, to do more than ever before. And it's made for more exciting off seasons, really. So, and it's great for content creators like ourselves. So I love it. I love the move for the Bears to be able to get the best receiver they could have possibly gotten this offseason too, which is really huge that they were able to get DJ Moore in this. By the way, DJ Moore, he's 25 years old. He'll be turning 26 in the next NFL season. So it'll be his year 26 season. But through age 25, his 5,000 career yards would be the best all time for the Chicago Bears, Matt. It's insane.
What's that? What'd you say there?
So this is what I haven't cross-checked this. There's like so much information that hits in a deal like this. DJ Moore would be the all-time leading receiver for the Chicago Bears right now. He's only 25 years old.
Wow. So his body of work is better than any Bears receiver in history, is what you're telling me thus far.
It's
that's mind-boggling.
As long as the Bears have been around and they've got a Lombardi, they have not had a good quarterback receiver combination for a long time. Like you got to go back to
forever.
Jay Cutler and Brandon Marshall or maybe like Eric Kramer and Curtis Conway.
A lot of those are short-lived too, like you said.
Right. Yeah, and none of them were for a decade long. Yeah, Jim McMahon and Willie Gault. How long did that last together?
Right. Interesting. So I want to get to the Bears here maybe in the next segment because I think they're very, very fascinating. But the Panthers, to me, they're under David Tepper. They are showing that they are amongst the most aggressive and organizations out there. They were in on Watson. Not everything fell through, but they've been very aggressive, even trading McCaffrey, which looks like help facilitate this deal. They worry me a little bit though. Like this isn't a Fortune 500 company. I wonder if they're a little too aggressive. I mean, I get trading up, and if this guy is a franchise quarterback, Stroud, Young, whomever, it's all worth it. I just think they might have given up too much. And part of it's just because I'm concerned with this class, to be honest with you. If this was Luck or Lawrence or Burrow, I get it. I just think you might regret it.
It's funny. Friday morning before this trade went down, we had Sam Monson of Pro Football Focus. And my question to him was, is a team really going to spend 3 first-round picks plus for an outlier of a 5'10", 195-pound quarterback? Yeah. And maybe not, as it turns out. Maybe Young's there for the Texans at number 2. But it's really interesting, Matt, and I don't know where this came from. Maybe it's a lot of people reading those tea leaves. And look, Josh McCown's not the number one decision maker, but he's the quarterback's coach. He's going to be looking at the tape here. But it's really interesting to have that perspective of being able to watch a video of Josh McCown, who's going to be in the draft room, has some say, will be coaching the quarterback that they draft, and you see him break down the film of these prospects. And he didn't get to Anthony Richardson, I don't think, but I watched the Will Levis. Didn't seem like. So I thought there was.
I don't think he's going to be the pick.
I don't think he didn't crush him or anything, and he didn't really say like I'm going to rank these guys 1, 2, 3 or anything like that. But you could tell just from that, and I think just from what we already thought anyway about this class, it would the decision at 1 is probably between Young and Stroud,
yeah.
and he was really complimentary of both of those quarterbacks, but it just felt a little bit like maybe he would lean towards Stroud. But look, he's not making the final decision. There's a GM, there's ownership, there's a head coach, all and scouting department, all that have a say in this, and probably a bigger say than he does, getting hired not that long ago, and as a first time coach in the NFL. So we'll see who it ends up being. By the way, I cross-checked this. DJ Moore, 5,201 career receiving yards in 5 seasons through age 25. Chicago Bears all-time leading wide receiver, 5,059 yards. So DJ Moore would be the career leader in Chicago Bears history if he accumulated those stats with the Bears. Johnny Morris, by the way, is the guy. He played between 1958 and 1967. Alshon Jeffrey of the modern era players, Alshon Jeffrey's number 1 at 4,549, just ahead of Walter Payton, who's number 4, and Mike Ditka, number 5.
Wow. I mean, great players, but that's some amazing stats considering how long the Bears have been around. Like that has to be one of the lowest receiving leaders in a franchise, period. Of any team. Like, the Texans have Andre Johnson and, Hopkins and guys like that are already past them. Some of the newer organizations.
Right. And Justin Fields, I bet after a couple more years, Justin Fields is going to be knocking on the door with the quarterback stats. He's probably already
right.
the leading quarterback rusher in Jets history after 2 years.
So I guess we'll go to break here, but the Panthers they're all in on their guy. If it hits, great. If they don't, they're in trouble. I mean, I really think it's that simple for them. They pushed all their chips in, and spinning the wheel, whatever. If it comes up black, they win. If it comes up red, you lose. I think it's that simple. Where the Bears are much more complex to me.
I will say one quick thing with the Chicago Bears before we move on to some other trades, and then we'll finish this episode taking a quick mock look at what it might look like now in the top 10 of the NFL draft. The Bears did trade out of a spot where there was a blue chip prospect for them to draft.
Mm-hmm.
And if they just kind of get guys, because I was looking at that, what would a mock draft look like for the Chicago Bears? And they could build a lot of a foundation for their football team. But if you're just getting kind of guys and you pass on someone who's the next great pass rusher in the NFL,
mm-hmm.
I could see how this doesn't work out amazing for the Bears. It's all about the star power of what they got in DJ Moore, that future first-round pick next year. Those are the real keys for me with the Bears. The other pieces could be really good too, and they could turn this into something amazing. They could do more trades, and it could be huge, but it could also be like, oh, man, okay, did you trade out of an opportunity for a blue-chip player, and you don't draft any blue-chip players with the rest of those picks that you got from the Panthers? So next year's first will be huge for this trade value in the end when we grade it later, but right now it looks like a big win for the Bears.
I adore what they got back, but that was my only concern as well, is you're not going to end up with Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. I mean, unless something off the field with Carter hasn't fallen that far. But
right.
This is a draft devoid of blue chip guys. Your pick isn't that much different than 15, 18. You'll get a good player. It probably won't be a blue chip stud prospect, but I love where the Bears are at right now.
Next, let's talk Jalen Ramsey. The Rams are blowing it up. Jalen Ramsey, now a member of the Miami Dolphins, Daron Payne signing, and more to start the free agency frenzy. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. Love this mobile game app. Anybody who's a football fan that maybe at some point want to be a GM in the NFL. Which was young me. And you got to give this game a try. It's not as easy as you might think as well to create a dynasty, just as we find with real NFL GMs. When you play Ultimate Football GM, you get control and manage of every aspect of your team as you play through seasons and lead your team to glory, trying to build a historic dynasty. You've got to get your combine numbers for your players. You've got to draft the right players to build your franchise, hiring and firing the right coaches and coordinators, with playing this scheme, the type of football you want to play as a GM, managing all the finances, including negotiating player salaries and terms, and navigating your franchise, free agency, draft, injuries, player personnel issues, all the ups and downs of a season, all in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM, completely free and playable offline, play on the go as you want to and when you want to. And Locked On listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On inside the game store. That's Locked On, all caps, one word. So make sure you check it out today. Download the game. Just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. What is going on, Matt, with those Los Angeles Rams? We've got a blockbuster trade on the eve.
Let's get to that in 1 minute. I apologize. But a couple Bears notes I just want to throw out there, too, before we move on. This is becoming a common approach when you already have a young quarterback, is give me a future first, because if Fields falls on his face this year, you're probably going to have 2 high picks, and then you're in the market again. We saw the Eagles and Dolphins take this approach, and they both stuck with their guy, but it's great insurance. So I love that. I love all the wealth of things they can do now. More is tremendous. I mean, that's exactly what they need. I mean, just the history of the franchise you mentioned, but that's so perfect for Fields. And as everyone knows, I'm sure by this point, and maybe by the listen to this, there'll be some people linked to them. In the next day or two, they might have McGlinchey or Hargrave or both locked up. They're going to add some big pieces, which you don't love from a star power perspective. Like, if you go below 60 million on 3 guys in the next 24 hours, you probably won't get your money's worth out of it. I mean, you'd rather have Will Anderson and, Jalen Carter and those guys as your blue chip dudes, but their roster's about to get a massive jolt.
Hey, they could move back up in the draft too. What if
They
Will
could.
Anderson
Right.
was still there at pick 5 and they go back up and get him?
Right.
Back up to 3 or something, and still just keep more in the first round pick. They could do some more maneuvering here in the draft as well and find some more blue chippers. But they'll be busy in free agency as well. And I think it was important for Ryan Poles, and the reason they pulled this trade off is, look, maybe we're not getting a lot of action with the other teams. Let's do this deal now. That way we know we have the deal, and that way we know what we can do in free agency. We know where we're going to draft, so we can plan our attack a little bit better.
Absolutely. We'll get to where they sit, at 9 now. They'll probably end up with a offensive or defensive lineman, and great. I mean, it's a good spot, but it won't be a blue chip dude. But I love where the Bears are at, and it's all about Fields. Make him the best chance to succeed, much like it was with Hurts, and they've set themselves up well to do that. So kudos to the Bears. I would have taken that offer in a heartbeat if I was Poles.
When the new league year begins Wednesday officially, Matt, and all of these deals and new signings can become official, Jalen Ramsey will be a member of the Miami Dolphins. Yeah. And all the Rams get in return is a 2023 third-round pick, number 77 overall, and tight end Hunter Long.
Long's fine. I mean, he's a number 2 tight end for them. I mean, he's small potatoes. Obviously, he's cheap. They're looking for cheap labor. He qualifies. Fine. I always kind of liked him. Whatever. This deal is more about money than anything else. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, myself included, thought the compensation for Ramsey would be higher. And I bet there's 25 fan bases out there. Like, why did my team make that trade? Well, he's expensive and he's about to get more expensive. And I think he's 30, so 30-year-old corners or corners his age, where, high 20s, 30, wherever he's at, that are going to demand that kind of money historically don't hit. Talked about how the Panthers are an ultra aggressive organization. I don't know if anyone's more aggressive than Miami anymore. I mean, they're just, going all in. I mean, they also they're about to pick up Tua's 5th-year option. So I think the Brady rumors are done. The Lamar rumors are probably done. Their chips are in the middle too. And they look like a very good team. We talked a lot about Rodgers to the Jets, who's the best team in the East. Well, Miami's in the hunt.
So when you're playing against the Miami Dolphins and you're on offense, you're throwing against Jalen Ramsey now and
Xavier Howard.
And when
Vic
you
Fangio.
And Fangio's right.
Yeah.
Vic Fangio, we love, he loves himself some high caliber cornerbacks.
Yeah.
And when you are on defense, you've got to cover Tyreek Hill. You've got the Shanahan tree running game to consider as well. Waddle on the other side. This is a tough team to play against, and they've got high caliber players that they've probably got the highest caliber skill position, offensive and defensive guys out on the outside in the entire NFL now.
I think you're right. And guys like Javon Holland and Phillips and Wilkins are 3 of my favorite young defensive players in the league who should only get better and better. And they do still have Chubb. Was that a good deal or not? Who knows? But he's a good player. Just take it a step further. I was wanting to mention Fangio because you mentioned the players. I mean, are there any better schemers than Fangio and McDaniel? You know what I mean? Like the X's and O's are going to be right where they need to be. And it looks like the Jimmies and Joes are right behind them now. So Tua, if he stays healthy, has shown that he can execute this offense at a high level. But I would invest in a Teddy Bridgewater or something still. And I keep hearing Miles Sanders is going to be a Dolphin, by the way.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders is a fit there with Daniel's offense. I wonder if Aaron Rodgers is like, maybe I don't want to go play for the Jets. There's too much competition there in the AFC East. Maybe that's why he's taking a little bit longer with his decision, which he said is coming soon recently.
Why does anyone want to go to the AFC?
Yeah, I definitely want to be in the NFC.
Heck yeah. But I like it for Miami. They're pushing their chips in. It's sometime like what happened with the Rams. The Bills are going to come due for Miami. That's probably a year or two down the road, or once Tua gets expensive, but he isn't yet. So, I think he's like a $25 million hit as a 5th-year guy. And, Tyreek won't be around forever. So they're pushing their chips in much like the Rams did. And I sent out a tweet. I mean, I listen to Mike Lombardi pretty religiously, and he's been saying all along, Matthew Stafford, it could still be had. I don't know why anybody would invest in Stafford at his age, injuries, expense, but
I could see if you're up against it and you're a team that, is okay with a one, and like maybe if you're the Jets, actually, if you're the Jets,
as a
you can't get
fallback,
Rodgers, like, well, at least we get 1 year of Stafford, figure it out again next offseason.
then he's cheaper. I mean, I wouldn't give up much to get him considering his age, injuries, expense.
Mm-hmm.
But my only question with the Rams is obviously they're blowing it up, and Rams fans blowing it up isn't the worst thing in the league. You can bounce back in a year or two, make a couple good picks, find your quarterback in next year's draft or whatever. But are they moving Kupp? Are they moving Donald? You know what I mean? Like there's two more chunks, I don't know what happens there.
That's the big question. And really for those guys, they might start to ask out because they're like, well, what's going on here?
Right.
And if you do have a star player on each side of the football, maybe the Rams are so bad that they pick first overall. Maybe you get a superstar quarterback.
I know, right.
Then maybe you're cooking again in the window with Kupp and Donald still. But you've got to believe that they're at least listening on everybody.
You have to. I mean, we've seen. I'm not sure he would demand Tyreek compensation or AJ Brown, but you can get a lot for a receiver at Kupp's age right now. I mean, you better do it now, or you're going to be stuck with them in a year or so and not get anything out of the guy. So, I would, clean house.
Coming off of injury, even still, you should be able to get a ton for Cooper Kupp right now, especially with this draft class. And that's why it's such a huge deal for the Bears to get DJ Moore. He was the best wide receiver they could possibly get, better than anybody by far in free agency or in the draft.
Yeah, it's a great point. And he's still young, and DJ Moore's also quite cost controlled at this point. Maybe he'll want a new deal soon, but right. So what?
So we keep hearing rumors about, T. Higgins, could he potentially be traded? Brandon Ayuk, any team that has a guy who could be potentially a number one for a team that's currently maybe a number two, and teams are just like wolves because what we've seen with wide receivers recently, the value there, and it's a tough position to find this offseason.
Yeah, and this is a tiny little move, but the Giants supposedly just re-signed Sterling Shepard. I think that's smart because you just don't want to be in the market. I mean, Sterling Shepard might not ever play again, and he's not great, but grab those guys while you can on the cheap. You do not want to be fishing for a wide receiver right now because they've gone up in price and value, period, and now the supply is so low. So if I'm the Rams, I'm shopping Kupp right now, and you might do quite well.
A couple of moves happening here before the tampering period gets going. We'll come back Tuesday, and I'm sure we'll have a ton of news and new signings and new rumored signings once the tampering really gets going here later Monday. But it looks like a free agent that was franchise tagged is actually going to be re-upped here before the new league year. Daron Payne, defensive tackle for the Washington Commanders, is now going to be the highest paid defensive tackle in NFL history, not named Aaron Donald, according to Adam Schefter, reaching an agreement on a 4-year, $90 million contract that includes $60 million guaranteed. So Daron Payne not hitting free agency, back with the Washington Commanders.
And I can see Hargrave going past him in a day or two as the second highest paid defensive tackle. Right. And, but this is a big buck. And I don't know that he's the household name that everyone realizes. He's very, very good. And I studied him extensively because I had high hopes that maybe the Steelers could get him, which is crazy. I mean, he's way more expensive than I thought, but he should be. I mean, impacty tackles like Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence and this new breed of guys that are in their second, third, fourth year are game changers. I mean, so I have no problem investing in him. I just wonder, across that D line, are you going to be able to keep Chase Young and Sweat? And I mean, all those first round picks are going to be pricey any minute now.
A really great timing for Daron Payne cashing in, by the way, after his 11.5 sack season last year, his first 3 seasons as far as like just sack output. And he's a first round pick and he's a really talented guy, but it was like 2 sacks, 3 sacks, and all of a sudden, 11.5 sacks, perfect timing. Let's go get $90 million. So congrats to Daron Payne not hitting the market, re-upped with the Washington Commanders. Jonnu Smith on the move too, we're seeing this morning, and the Patriots getting out from under one of their free agent tight ends from not that long ago.
I don't know why Atlanta wants him. I mean, I know that there's a Tennessee connection with the head coach, and Smith has flashed, and he's always teased me like he's been sitting on my bench in dynasty leagues forever, and he's just just an ultimate tease. But some of these tight ends take a while. I mean, it has been a while. You would think he's in the mix. I mean, folks, by the way, Pitts is more of a wide receiver than he is a tight end in terms of usage. It's not like, boy, they can't use a tight end. But Jonnu's not exactly a killer at the line of scrimmage either. I mean, in terms of blocker, but another weapon. I guess it makes some sense. But it's
not threatening to Pitts.
No.
But is a nice compliment to him. Very different body type, even though neither one is a world-beating blocker. But I'm sure they can use Pitts more split out now, and Jonnu Smith can be a little bit more and move around as an H-back and do a lot of different things on offense. And obviously the Tennessee connection. So I'm sure he's a player that Arthur Smith likes a lot. All right, real quick, let's take a look at the brand new top 10.
Another 6'5" guy that can run.
Right.
They have a bunch of,
let's look at the new top 10 of the NFL draft. Next.
Like
You can bet on the draft, by the way, at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Draft props. Who's going to be the #1 pick for the Carolina Panthers? We're seeing those odds change now once the #1 pick did get moved. And it's the midway point of the NBA season as well. So it's the perfect time to download FanDuel because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure. Love the site. Love the app. Super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything. Money line, point scores, threes drained, home runs, baseball season getting going. I saw my first San Francisco Giants baseball game on TV yesterday. Cactus League action. So getting so excited for that. You can bet on snooker if you even know what that is, which I don't really know anything about on FanDuel. So have some fun at FanDuel. Baseball season, college tourney, NBA or NFL draft props as well. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Okay, Carolina Panthers are on the clock, Matt. How's this look for you now in the new top 10? It's really odd because 9 out of 10 mock drafts, Matt, before this weekend had Bryce Young as the #1 quarterback in the draft. All of a sudden, the Carolina Panthers go up to #1. And CJ Stroud becomes almost a heavy favorite to be the #1 pick. That is very strange. I wonder if there's some secrets being told behind the scenes in some ways, because that's a wild change here for everybody who watches the tape. Say Bryce Young's the best quarterback. Pick one, changes hands. Now CJ Stroud seems to be the guy.
Yeah, and I do think that maybe some of this was building as well, because the last football game we saw of Stroud against Georgia was his best, and I don't say he answered some questions, but he showed that he can be a runner, a playmaker, an out-of-structure dude against an elite defense. So I think he started to gain a little more momentum after watching that tape, and everybody saw it, of course, and scouts have seen it forever. And then he goes to the combine and probably throws the ball better than anybody else too, and not that Bryce Young did anything wrong, but he's just standing there with 3 hoodies on trying to look big. All he did, if you notice, he never had like a t-shirt on or stood next to like Andrew Richardson. His job was to look big for a week, and everyone else was doing things. So I guess I get it. I mean, but the way I mocked it out was Stroud then Young. Would the Texans be happy with either? Are they unhappy about this move? I don't know. I'm curious. I mean, if they've been linked to Young from the start, they probably still get him. At least that's what Vegas is telling us. Who knows?
It's probably what the Panthers thought in this. They're like, well, we're sure about 2 guys. So let's go up to 1, because if we go up to 3, those 2 guys might be gone if another team makes a move.
Yeah, because I don't think Houston's moving. I mean, whether they have a line of delineation between Young and Stroud, who knows? But I think they'll get one of the 2, and Carolina will get one of the 2, and there you have it. And then the draft kind of starts at 3.
Yes, absolutely. So Stroud 1 to the Panthers, Bryce Young 2 to the Texans. Then what do the Cardinals do at 3? Is there trade action? Can we see quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4 in this one, Matt?
Could the Cardinals trade out of this week? You know what I mean? Like, everyone knows 2 quarterbacks are going. I have Richardson going 4 to the Colts. You got to think the Colts are probably still going to take one. Could we go 4 quarterbacks in a row?
Could the Colts just say, let's just get up to 3 and make sure, and then we're good?
Maybe. Or the Raiders want to get to 3, or, Lions or Seattle or a team like that, or Atlanta, or, I don't know. I think that's interesting. But
Or were the Panthers the one team that was really willing to do something, and everybody else in this draft class would see the quarterbacks and like, oh, they're okay, but we're not going to go crazy here.
Right. And I would also think along those lines, if I'm Arizona and people are calling me, I'd say, well, I want 95% of the package that the Bears just got. And
right.
I'm not paying that.
And I bet that's what the Panthers found when they called Arizona was like, hey, when you're on the clock, if we wanted to make a deal, what would that look like? And it ended up being just about the same, except for minus the 2025 second round pick. And then the Panthers were like, well, let's just go up to 1 then.
Yeah, right. That makes sense to me. So worst case scenario for Arizona is they get their choice of the 2 defensive linemen. Great. That's not bad. I mean, you'd have taken that a week ago, but it might get sweeter. They might move down a little again, or who knows?
So you've got Jalen Carter going here, and this is just you having him ahead of Will Anderson as long as the background checks clear up.
Yeah, I think he's a better prospect. So I didn't want to kill I didn't know what to do with Carter in the mock, so I didn't want to kill him yet. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. If more comes out, we'll see. But I think he's a better football player than Will Anderson, or a prospect than Anderson.
The more I think about this for the Colts, Andrew Richardson, 4 feels really high for how much of somewhat of a prospect he is, but the raw tools, it doesn't really get much better from an arm athleticism standpoint. In fact, I don't think there maybe has ever been a guy I can think of in recent history that has that much. And there's some good tape out there, some bad tape as well. You have to be confident in your job, and this is probably the last time. It's definitely the last time Chris Ballard would have an opportunity to draft a quarterback and just swing for the fences here. And seeing what Shane Steichen did in Philly has to be part of this. Which is like kind of like Anthony Richardson here for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, and just install the Jalen Hurts plan. We're going to have a lot of design runs. You have Jonathan Taylor, Quentin Nelson, Pittman's all right. You have some pieces. It's not the supporting cast that Hurts had, but you have some pieces. I think Richardson's going to go high.
Things could get really interesting at 5. Will Anderson's on the board here. He's your pick for the Seattle Seahawks. I think it'd be pretty easy for Seattle to make the pick here. If Jalen Carter's the guy or Will Anderson is the guy, and Jalen Carter passes the investigation, the background checks that all the teams will do here. But a quarterback could be in play as well. A trade could be in play here. The Seahawks are still in a pretty powerful position as long as there's 3 quarterbacks. And as long as there's 3 or 4 quarterbacks that people like, and that there's 2 defensive studs that are in a tier of their own.
The top 5 is where you want to be. If we look at 3 quarterbacks and 2 blue chip guys, Seattle's going to get one of those. I do think Seattle at 5 and Detroit at 6. I keep going back to this. We'll consider a quarterback just because they both have 2 first-round picks. I have Christian Gonzalez going 6 to the Lions. What if you took Levis and then at 20 or wherever they pick, they take the next best corner?
Yeah,
it's not Gonzalez. What's the difference?
At 6 especially, there might be a big gap, and you're just like, well, we've got to take a quarterback like Will Levis, who maybe he's not quite as wowing as Richardson is, but he's got a lot of physical ability, and he's good on the whiteboard. And he had an opportunity to learn, NFL verbiage and NFL offense under a former NFL offensive coordinator last year at Kentucky, even though, things didn't go amazing. Looking back at multiple years of his tape, I would be shocked at all if quarterback ends up at 6, especially because it's just so much more valuable if you hit on that quarterback for the Lions. You can let him sit for a year versus maybe getting a corner that's not all that different talent-wise from the guy you could get at 20, or you can move up, or you can move around with another pick too. So really interesting there in the top 5 or 6 picks before you get to the Raiders at 7, who you do have Will Levis going to.
Yeah, and I think it's easier for the Lions to turn their back on a Christian Gonzalez or a Tyree Wilson than it is Seattle to turn their back on Will Anderson for a quarterback. I think there's a gap there. So, and then I have Levis going to the Raiders. I'm curious, will the league look at Levis and Richardson as the same tier as the top 2, or there'll be a 3-guy tier? Who knows? But I don't think Levis falls far.
Or will it be a situation like last year where, there's rumors of, oh man, this team likes this team, or this team likes this player. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, their teams are just letting those quarterbacks fall. We saw it in 2021 with Mac Jones. Is like, oh, is he going to go number 3? It's actually, no, he actually goes 15, Justin Fields, a team had to trade up to get him to stop sliding from number 11 when people thought he could potentially be the number 2 pick in the draft. So, there still could be some sliding. It'll be really interesting because I bet everyone's board is different as far as quarterbacks go and how much they like each guy.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of Jimmy to the Raiders talk already. Would that be enough for them to just hold tight and wait till next year? Could Levis fall to a team like Tennessee or Washington, somewhere in the middle of the first round? I guess it's possible, but I'm hearing a lot of good things about Levis. I have my doubts about him, but I guess he interviewed well, yada, yada,
We got Texas Tech defensive end Tyree Wilson going to the Atlanta Falcons. There's some scouts out there that are saying maybe they even like him more than Will Anderson because of his freakish size and wingspan and potential. I would take Will Anderson all day, but
me too.
You know how teams like those long arms and those guys that just have traits that pass the eye test and pass that sort of a physical prototype test like Tyree Wilson absolutely does.
Yeah, and I think all this movement, Atlanta's quietly kind of happy. Like we'll get a guy that we thought might have went 5 or 6 at 8, or Gonzalez, or Miles Murphy, or whomever. I mean, like you get a pretty good player at 8 with all these quarterbacks falling.
Skipping the Bears real quick, number 10 here to finish the top 10, Devin Witherspoon, cornerback from Illinois to the Philadelphia Eagles, which is, a really common mock draft pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. But let's finish this up with the Chicago Bears now. The big trade, they've moved back from 1 to 9. What do you have the Bears doing now with their new slot at pick number 9, Matt?
I gave him Miles Murphy, and I was really torn. I basically just flipped a coin whether it would be Murphy or their choice of offensive lineman. Skoronski, I think, is really in play there too. I mean, he's a Northwestern guy. It's a local feel. The Bears' offensive line could really use anything. But the problem with forecasting the Bears now is, like we said to start the show, like they may have signed 2 tackles by tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that their intentions will be a lot more clear 3 or 4 days from now.
Yeah, and when we reconvene Tuesday afternoon, it's going to be a little bit later when we release the show, but we'll have a lot more information on that. And I have a feeling later today, the Chicago Bears are going to be very active Monday. Do they go defensive line heavy, which could tip it off, and they'll know they'll have their pick of at least 1 or 2, maybe all of the offensive linemen in the NFL draft at 9, and they might think that's better money spent in free agency.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they attack things, and I wouldn't be shocked either way, or they just sign everybody they can and go best player available at pick number 9, which would probably be smart as well.
Last thing I'm going to throw at you, and I know your answer, but I was a little bit, enticed to throw Bijan Robinson there.
I knew you were going to say that as soon as you said I'd be against it. No, that you just don't.
I know. The answer is no.
I'm okay with, a team dropping a stud running back in at the end, but you don't start there to me. Like you have this opportunity and he could be a great player in the NFL. Maybe they trade back again. Then, Bijan might be in play if you're in the late teens or something. And he's just so far ahead on your board, and they do a lot in free agency. And now you've created this dynamic offense, and now your wide receiver group looks really good with DJ Moore being the number 1 and a true number 1. And then you got a 2 and a 3 and very different players in Claypool and Darnell Mooney, and then you throw a dynamic running back in on that. You've already fixed your offensive line for the most part and feel good about that. I could see it, and you're adding more draft picks and more value there. Maybe you're not blown away with Miles Murphy, or you're not blown away with players that are there for you in the first round of pick number 9. You can get more value and allow yourself to do more. I wouldn't be against it. At 9, it would just be
a little rich.
It's just not the way you build it. I just don't think a running back is going to add that many wins to your football team.
The only time I really am in favor of drafting a running back high is if it's clearly going to make your young franchise quarterback's life, progress, maturity much, much easier. That's why I was kind of thinking about it. And maybe we'll revisit this in a week if they have Hargrave, McGlinchey, and Orlando Brown signed. You know what I mean?
Right.
That is, it'll be a little different, but it is a little rich.
And then even then I would say, we'll just get Skoronski then and get an interior guy too.
Right.
And maybe we'll see that. Maybe the Bears are sitting there thinking, well, Skoronski's our guy. We love this guy. I don't care if he plays guard. We'll sign some tackles in free agency. He can play guard first too. He's the best player for us at 9. And
maybe play 5 spots.
And you have the 9th pick. There's certain positions, certain things with the 9th pick that you can do, and you can find a running back. Whereas vice versa, it's much harder to do the opposite. So that's why I would say you got to go positional value there if you're the Bears at 9.
Give Miles Sanders $5 million and be done, or whatever, or don't.
Thanks everybody for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen. Love the big shakeup in the NFL. We've got a new number 1, and we're going to have a whole bunch of new players on new teams when we reconvene Tuesday. Then the new league year, new signings, more trades, probably some big time headlining quarterbacks potentially on the move as well. We'll have it all covered for you right here, Peacock and Williamson.